yeah, I stood my ground, and I had cornrows by then, so
Oh.
the cornrows were already there.
Yeah, like, oh my goodness.
Yes, yes. But for the cornrows, my mom used to plait my hair, so that
So that
was
was okay.
that was okay. Um, yes, everybody said there is no way you're going to go and become a musician, because the perception of art and musicians by then hadn't really developed
Yeah.
to what we have them as now. Even culturally, the way art is still being perceived now is still on shaky ground. It's growing, but it's still on very shaky ground.
Yeah.
There was the term abadongo, which meant the indongo, the instrument, but then there was a character attached to it that you couldn't be respected as a musician, you know.
Yeah.
So we had to fight the perception, first of all, in hip hop itself, and also raga, reggae. So many people had to fight that perception. Eli Wamala had to wear suits, you know, when he was performing, so to get the respect. He had to turn down gigs of otambula n'endongo ne bakwita bakubiremu, then you play for them. Like he had to do with such things just to fight the perception of art. Yeah, but the decision had been made, and whether they wanted it or not, I began comparing the salary of professors who have PhDs to Michael Jordan, who was almost $1 billion, and they couldn't see that. And I was telling them, okay, I've grown up poor, and there's no way I'm going to continue the cycle of poverty in my family. It's going to end with me.
Wow.
And it's not going to be by going down to work in a place where yes, in a place where mosquitoes have teeth. I'm not going to go work there. I remember that was what I said, and they quote it up to now.
The mosquitoes have teeth.
Yeah, I said it's going to end with me, because through my art I can try to break that cycle and try to get paid more, or my son or whoever comes after me will have a way out. But if we all just see it from it's only a doctor and a lawyer and a whatever who are going to generate this much wealth, then I don't think that's what I want to do. Yeah.
I guess it was hard for them to see it at the time. But also, I mean, just like what you're talking about, your history, being on the debate team and being so fascinated when it came to physics, you also always had something that you wanted to share.
Yeah.
I think. Even later on, a lot of the projects that you did were like charity-based, but empowering the youth and all of that. It seemed like that was also a driving force for you.
Yes. I read Malcolm X, and up to now my struggle has always been for black people. I look at people nowadays talking about oliwa movement oyambala yellow, owagunda ayambala red, right? And to me it informs that the people have not yet read their history, because these colors have also always been part of the struggle of African politics. And I look at the bigger picture being African liberation and us being able to own the land that's ours by ancestry, and uplift ourselves as a people. Like, what's our standing in world affairs as black people? So I see my role as an addition to the bricks that were laid before me. The bricks of Mandela, the bricks of Malcolm X, the bricks of Martin Luther, the Belafontes of the time. I see myself as part of the struggle to liberate my brothers and my sisters. And in that liberation, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about picking up guns, but I'm talking about how do we take care of each other and lock arms so we can fight poverty, so we can educate each other, so we can show love to each other, and rise to that queenship or kingship that we always talk about that black people have, you know? How are we going to become the next pharaohs? How could we become the next Nefertitis, you know? How do we do that? Do I see crystal? When I see crystal, do I see a queen? Or do I see a B word? Like we're being told in the music. So most of my projects, like Story Aluka, I wrote that song from the heart because I wanted the people who had been victimized or people who had AIDS to know that they are not alone, you know? And also tell my fellow youth that actually, yeah, using a condom could save you. You will live longer. Eli Wamala done his role, so what was my generation's role? The people who are listening to hip-hop, and hip-hop is the ears of the young people, of the youth. It's a very powerful movement. How do I use that to educate? So I did that I used music with public health campaigns. We did so many of them. True
I
Manhood.
know.
Yes, and most of them were actually initiated by us. I would sit down with my team, Baboon Forest, and say, what should we tackle? True Manhood. Okay, to collaborate to and when we write a proposal, take it to these people. Do they like it? Sometimes they would reject them.
Yeah.
And then after a year, they are like, but this, I think,
There's
let's
something-
call them back to be, yes, to be a part of
Yes.
this. Yeah, we worked closely with UHMG. We worked with USAID and so many other people.
Exactly.
So
I
whether
think
it
more
was
recently, Reach a Hand
yes,
Foundation
Reach a Hand as well. Yeah. So
They
whether
seem
it
to
was
do a lot of campaigns that had a lot of social awareness
yes.
to them as well.
Yeah.
Do you feel like did you feel at the time that there was a gap?
Oh, very much so, very much so, very much so. There is a very huge gap, and part of the challenges, I should say, even as I'm doing Nsimbi right now. Nsimbi is when I'm singing with my wife, my partner.
Yes.
We are the Nsimbi, just like you have Jay-Z and Beyonce. They are the Carters. We're like, let's do our thing to represent what we want to see in the world. What's the positive picture that we want to see? What would we want to like to add on to the world?
Okay.
And then if I'm GNL, I can go rap and battle people. But there is a bigger picture to what we are doing. So going to what you are saying, that is it missing? Yes, it's missing, because when most people look at music, they only look at the charts, you know?
Yeah.
They only see, oh, oli ku chart olina kayimba ku chart, oli wakabi. But to me, that's very limited and it's very limiting. I love doing that. I love being on stage. I love being on a chart. But I'm like, music is a gift from God or the gods to people to communicate the divine message.
Yeah.
You know, to quote other musicians, we are the whistle. You know, the gods blow through us and then we make the noise. You know. So our role as musicians is not just to sing about big butts shaking. I love the big butts, you know. But what about letting young girls know their self-worth?
Yeah.
What about encouraging them to go to school? If all of us rap about glorifying big booties and, you know, twerking, who is going to educate the mental? You're talking about who is going to educate upstairs here? Where do we strike the balance? And to not, I love Uganda's music industry, but we are also leaning so much on akayimba kali katya ku chat yakubye ekivulu, but you're not valuing what's the contribution of these musicians besides being on radio.
Yeah.
You know?
And what's the legacy of your music?
What's the legacy of your music? How many people have you uplifted in your camp? Like when I first made it as a hip hop artist, I signed 5 other people. I made a collective so that all of us can travel together. It's a collective movement. And to me, hip hop in its purest form, the way I understand it, is a force that can uplift the youth. It's a movement of the people who know. You're hip, you know. It's hopping, you're moving. It's a movement of people who know. But the greatest form of knowing is knowing that you have the love for the people around you. It's in service to community. It's in service to society. And that's one of the things that I aspire to do. Even if I don't do any other concert, but as long as I inspire 10 other Gnl Zambas, you know, to become better rappers, to create other songs that are socially responsible, to encourage other people to have economic viability, become hip-hop entrepreneurs. To me, I would have done my job. The praise is there, but there's so much more that we can do. There's a legacy we have to create.
True.
I have a legacy to create as a human being, but you as Crystal and Ugandan All-Star, all these other people that have media power and platforms, what's our responsibility as our generation? What have we done as our generation? Mandela did his thing, you know? What's the responsibility of the generation that comes after that? The Kenyattas fought. What's the next year? What's your responsibility? How have you contributed to black people, us as black people, our standing in the world? Have you contributed to it, or are you destroying it? Are you even thinking about it? Because other societies are. You think they are not, but they are, and you're always at the bottom, carrying everybody's weight instead of taking your proper place. You know. as being a very instrumental person that cancels all other races and embraces them back to home Africa, where we come from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I was just thinking back to you at the beginning of the interview when you
Yes.
said that you're actually a very shy person.
Yes, that's why I'm wearing this. Yes,
So we're explaining.
I'm a very shy person. That's why I'm wearing these. That's true. That's true.
But it's kind of crazy that, you know, at the same time that you
Yeah.
can be so aggressive in an industry like hip hop.
Yes.
It's quite interesting. I was looking back on your journey, the number of awards that
Yes.
you have won.
Yeah.
In terms of, I mean, then I was also looking at the fact that you've been invited, I think, to the university to speak.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, when you look back at these things, you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I did all that.
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
it something?
Some of my most proudest moments are when I'm speaking to people younger than me who are in the same position I was in, but had no role model to talk to them. And seeing that I can share from what I know and it changes the game for them.
Okay.
That gives me more joy than people screaming my name when I'm walking through Kabalagala or when I'm going through Acacia Mall and they're like, oh my God, GNL. There's this person who's like, you told me something 2 years ago and it changed my whole perception and my whole game. That right now I'm doing A, B, C, and D, or I'm invited to speak in Washington now. To me, that gives me more joy because he's going to be feeding a family.
Yes. Yeah.
Than, oh, I just know your face on TV. To me, that no longer holds as much value. I want to speak to someone who's going to tell me, oh, when I spoke to you, I began seeing Africa or Uganda, where we come from, and I saw the bigger thing that I could contribute to it. Yes, so yes, I've been invited to speak at the university several times.
Yes.
So in there's a very nice lady called Chiguli, Dr. Chiguli.
Okay.
She also writes very nice poetry. So she studied my music. She studied my music and she began analyzing it from a doctor's perspective, you know?
Okay.
And I'd always loved poetry. And then she began analyzing my music and my style of writing. And so she began analyzing my word choice from the rhymes and how I formulate things to either create a persona. First of all, there's a word that she used to say, when you're rapping, you're conceited. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's a very hip hop thing. You're rapping, you're like, I'm the best, I can do A, B, C, and D. But then she said that then on some other songs, you're speaking like our judges from back in the day, like the ancestors used to communicate. You're actually archiving history and telling a story of this generation, your generation, and you're putting it through time. So our topic was orature.
Okay.
How African societies have always saved. We did not write because we always had songs to inform us and stories to tell to the next generation. So it was that discussion that in my hip hop, she was seeing that I was doing that. And I went to speak to the students about that. Yeah, and it was a very happy time.
I know.
And we discovered so much more. And I learned from them and they also learned from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it must have been very interesting to realize, number one, that you're being studied.
Yes.
But number two, also to learn something new about yourself. Oh, you're like, oh, I'm actually doing that.
Yes. Subconsciously, you're doing that.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I want you to take me back to, like, you know, when you started out. Because you said when you made it as a hip hop artist, who are the people you started out with?
Yes. That was a struggle. To be honest, it was really a struggle. Even after I told you that I had Robert Kiyosaki and I was comparing musicians' salaries, I would be like, Bono is almost 800 million. Jay-Z right now has about 400 million. But you're telling me to go and work for whatever. They're like, but those people are somewhere else and you know, they have different backgrounds. And like compare yourself to Koloba or somebody like from Uganda, so and so died broke. And there were so many examples that they used to go with, right? I'm a very resilient person when I want something, and I'm very stubborn when I want something. Actually, it gives me more encouragement. I work best when most people disagree with me. When most people agree with me, it's counterproductive. I want people to tell me, you can't do it. Then I go do it. You get me? Like I want the
rebellious
whole
spirit
village to
in
be
you.
like, no, you village idiots, you can't do this. You get me?
And you're letting me prove
I'm
it.
like, okay, village idiots, you say it. When I come back, ABC and D will happen. So yeah, that works for me. So even with hip hop music, I used to go to radio stations and present this CD that had Soda Gingerly and I think a song called Yenze. And we never had money for borders, so you'd walk from university to university, you walk to either Capital, walk to Sanyo, walk to Dembe FM, walk everywhere. And then they'll say, but why don't you put that beat? And you'll be like, okay, it's another thing. That wouldn't be hip hop if I did that. And you take your CD back and walk back with your tail between your legs. And yeah, and you'd go and sit with, now I would walk like up to Sanyu and then walk to Ntinda to a place called Spot After.
Yeah.
But I would be working with friends. I would work with a guy called Rule Smalls.
Okay.
Rule Smalls, I'm looking for you if you're watching this. We have to choose some money, you know. So I would work with Rule Smalls and we would be rapping. So sometimes we would even reach without knowing that we had actually walked very long distances. And we would dress hip hop with our hip hop boots.
Yeah.
Even though we were broke, we'd still be looking good, you know. Like our swag was always on 100, you know. And yeah, sometimes we'd even walk with, you have your wife, they call it a wife beater, a vest, a white, with your jeans and your boots. That's for walking. So that if you're sweating and you reach there, your tea is still fresh. It's from the t-shirt younger, yeah, better fresh. They're like, they're wearing a white tee. The boots are brown, the Timberland boots, so you can't really tell in the night. So if the tea is fresh, would go rap and people are like, hey, okay. But then I was still rapping in English.
Yeah.
My breakthrough actually came through because I realized my purpose as an artist, still through reading books. Most of my knowledge has been through reading books. I studied other industries elsewhere.
Okay.
And then I began analyzing other industries elsewhere with what was missing over here. So I was rapping in English and the people are not really understanding it.
Not really connecting.
Yes, but when I was rapping to my high school friends or my group of people, they'd be like, oh my God, gee, you're so bright. That's such a punchline. Let me say something like, life is a crystal. I'm feeling like a Newman. You get me? Life is like a crystal. I'm feeling like a Newman. You get me? Something like that. They'll be like, oh my God, gee, how did you think of that? So they would understand that. But to a common man on a border,
no.
That's, what did you just say? Agambiechi? Kribichi? So I realized that, oh, there's a disconnect. And then the other disconnect I also realized was our judges and our great judges sat around a fire and began telling stories. Those same stories and their style of telling stories and poetry, Bitontome, is the same way the Americans tell stories on beats. I was like, oh, Eureka! I discovered it. You know, so that was my epiphany. So the next song that I wrote was Soda Gingerly. I was like, in order to bridge the gap between tradition and modern, my generation and the old generation were representing a whole people in Uganda. I'm not in America, I'm not in New York. I'm in Uganda, Ndikawempe, or I'm in Tinda. But then I moved to Ntinda. So I was like, I'm in Tinda right now. What would a border man have in common with me, who is educated? What's my Jaja going to have in common with anybody else? It's like, okay, the language has to be Luganda. Our true essence. Things happen when you're true to yourself. So in my own true self, hip hop is self-expression. Self meaning us, black people, you as GNL, you as Nsimbi. How do you express yourself to people? So I discovered Luganda was going to be the key. And so I did Soda Gingerly, and then I wrote another song called Yenze. And then from studying the situation of poverty around me, and trying to uplift my people, I did Koi Koi. I wrote Koi Koi in Luganda. And then I began shopping all those songs around to people, right? to radio stations, but then they were not so welcoming because the beat was more of an American beat, and they were not familiar with it. Yes, and we went through struggle. They wouldn't pay, the promoters wouldn't pay, and even if they paid, you'd be the first on stage. You know, people are throwing things at you, but because I'd built a resilience and I knew what I wanted, that was just a means to what I wanted to get to. I knew they didn't know what I had, and the moment it clicked, it was unstoppable because I'd performed on every ghetto stage, from Kasubi to Namuwongo to Namugongo to Ntinda, like the whole of Kampala, and without a car. It was either on a border. A fans car really appreciated the music. Yeah, but even back then, my company was called Baboon. I formed a company even as a poor man. I was like, I'm going to call it Baboon Forest.
So where did the Baboon Forest come from? Was it a conversation and you just said, oh yeah, this sounds right, this feels good?
Yeah, so Baboon Forest came from my love for monkeys. I love monkeys. I love big monkeys, apes, you know? And because I love movies as well, I loved Rafiki from Lion King with his colorful face, you know? And if you get to realize, Rafiki is actually the wisest man in the whole pride. Everybody wants to be king, but kings come and go. Mufasa died, Mufasa's father died, but Rafiki covered there for a very long time, you know? And Rafiki's role in the kingdom, in the Lion King, is to actually inform other kings when they have forgotten who they are.
Yeah, to guide them.
To guide them so that they can reach their true potential and greatness.
Yeah.
So Rafiki is the storyteller. You get me?
Right.
Yes, so I became the storyteller. And the collective of the storyteller, to me, Rafiki, would be the person to guide everybody to becoming great. It's not only about Zamba, it's also about becoming great. All of us as a collective, as a people. And yeah, so I thought baboon, since I love monkeys, I love baboons. You look back to folklore, Gipiri and Labongo, when he had lost the spear, he goes into this forest which has like a lot of treasures and beads and pearls and all these other things. And it's a monkey that was guiding him to the god, and the god was telling him, okay, now when you go back, here is the spear, wafumi senjo vuyange, but here's the spear, and I'm also giving you these beads to take back. So it's also part of our folklore.
Right.
There is that metaphor and the storytelling that the monkey always encourages the people to become kings. So I'm calling myself a kingmaker. That in hip hop we have designed a template that could be used by anybody to become great. You can use a Gnl template as a blueprint and become great. You can inspire other people to become great too, you know? It's us as a collective, it's us moving together. So we're good. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So now, I mean, after all this time and you're looking back,
Yeah.
do you feel like there's some mistakes that you made, things you could have done differently, or you know, you think everything happened the way it was supposed to happen?
Yeah, everything happened the way it was supposed to happen, by the way. But like I told you, introspect. Yes, there's several mistakes that have been made.
Okay.
Many, so many. But I'm glad we made those mistakes. And I'm glad we made them in the time where those mistakes could be revised.
Okay.
But, and this is the age when we're meant to revise them. Those mistakes made us who we are, and we're glad for those scars. There are so many things we could have done better, but then it wouldn't have had the lesson. I look at mistakes as paying tuition in the school of experience, you know? Yeah, some mistakes cost you, but most mistakes make you, because you get to realize how not to do things. Yeah.
Okay. And then your decision to leave Uganda.
Yes.
How did you come to that decision? When did you meet your wife? I should start there, actually.
Yeah, so I met my wife at a popular bar in Kampala. it was at the end of my tour. I had done a country tour with Pilsner. It was for speaking vernacular.
Okay.
So we were very happy. We were very tired. We had been so far away from Kampala for a long time. So I had my road manager tell me, gee, there's no way we're going to go to bed. Let's just go to a bar and have a cold Guinness. You get me? So yeah, Mose Radio also called me. He's like, "Mamba guy muli dawa, mukomye." So like, okay, yeah, let's meet. Let's meet at the back. So I think they also had a show somewhere, a corporate show somewhere in town.
Yeah.
So we meet at the back of the bar, and it's just a circle of Lyrical G, Big Trio, Enigma. Enigma was there that night. A couple of people from the hip hop circle. And yeah, the Good Life people and the management. So we're just having a discussion, beer. It was a light night.
Okay.
And yeah, and that's when I was actually speaking to someone, and I turned around, and then she was seated right there. And we began talking. And when we began talking, everybody, we lost track of time and everybody left. We almost closed the bar, and yeah, that was our connection, and we've been together since then.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's like how many years now, though?
It's 8 years.
Wow.
It's 8 years now,
Okay.
but we've been married for 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the decision to leave Uganda, whose decision was it? And
Oh, it was a
why?
decision. It was both. It was both of us, because I used to do the back and forth. I used to travel, go see her, and then come back, and then I realized a ticket is expensive.
Yeah.
But she was before she was living here, and we had said that the moment we would be approaching our 30s, we would try to experiment with living in another city. And I'd also been tired because I felt I wasn't challenged enough. I'd done the whole Okubya corporate party, high school, and then you do a Kwanjula, and then you do a country tour. That would, you do the show a year high school or a university, and then you do the corporate party, and then you do a Kwanjula because they want someone some koi with the youth age. So I used to do all those, and that would be like a weekend.
Okay.
And then you do that for the whole weekend, and then every year you'd have either a concert or a country tour.
Yeah.
So I did that several times, and I was like, okay, where's the growth? Where's the growth in what I'm doing?
All right.
So sometimes I would, before going on stage, I'd be like, it no longer hits me the same way it used to, because now I'm used to everything.
Yeah.
I know when I do this song, they're going to shout. I know when I do this, they're going to shout. When I say this, they're going to shout. So that wasn't the challenge anymore. And I felt like I wasn't growing.
Okay.
And yeah, she was living already in LA, and she was always on phone. I want to see you. And sometimes we would Skype, and the network wasn't really good. She would freeze on the screen, like in the best moments, And yeah, so we decided to move to LA to explore other areas.
Okay.
And since I'm a storyteller, I wanted to also explore my film side.
Yes.
Seeing people that I admire, from Ice Cube to Tupac, all of Will Smith, all of them have been in music and then transitioned to film and storytelling.
Yes.
Visual storytelling. So it's only natural that I had to switch. And the retirement package also looks more attractive, Yeah. Whereas in Uganda, you'd buy property fine, but would only buy property from endorsements.